Oh, you're
Zoom,
so
but some more
kind.
people might
You're
come
so
on.
kind.
Take
You're
your
so
time.
kind. You know where.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm trying to find a way. There's a way to share this to Facebook so that people can watch it on Facebook at the same time.
Yeah.
But I haven't figured it out yet. And
Okay.
what can you do?
It's their loss. They should all be on this line. This is so clear and so good.
This is better. Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Hi.
Hi, Paul.
Oh, that's nice.
Hi there. Hi there, fellow Chumash lovers.
Right.
Hi there, Bob. Hi there.
Wait. Oh, no.
Oh goodness. Give me one more minute and then we'll be ready to go.
I can't wait till we go back to 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Oh, he's getting a yarmulke.
I thought that's what we had
I
decided
think
on
you
at
cut
10
off
o'clock.
our audio.
You want a Chumash?
Okay. All right, here we go.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Guys, can-
Here we go.
I go, wow.
All right, everybody. Here I am. I am with you. I am with you. Actually, I'm going to unmute everybody because everybody's pretty good at not talking all at once. So I'm just going to unmute so that if anybody has comments, they can comment or ask. And if you're doing something else, just mute yourself, okay? Okay, everybody?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know, on mine, I've lost everybody but you. I have you and me on the picture. That's all I have.
Why?
Well,
That's all you need.
I spotlight.
This is true. This is true. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, go.
So the book of Bamidbar, right? We have a whole new book, the fourth book of the Torah, Bamidbar, also known as Numbers, begins their journey through the desert. And really, the middle of the book of Bamidbar is the big time warp that goes from the first generation, the generation that left Egypt, to the children.
Rabbi, can you mute everybody because the sound is breaking down?
Okay, I will.
Okay, keep them muted because the sound is breaking down.
Okay, can you hear me now better? Oh, I can't hear you if you do, so I hope you do. In the middle of the book of Bamidbar, there is the jump in the narrative, in the timeline between the first generation, the generation that left Egypt, and then the last generation, the generation that's going to enter the land of Israel, or the second generation from the Exodus. And so it's a very interesting book, and the reason it's called Numbers in the Latin is, well, Numbers is actually English, but it must be Latin too because they have Latin names. Something to think about. I'll have to look that up. But anyways, Numbers is because there are a bunch of counts of the Bnei Yisroel. And that is going to be the theme here as well. So I'm going to dive right in. We don't have that much time, so I'm going to dive right in to discuss the first verse of the Parsha, chapter 1, verse 1. And here we go. On the first day of the second month, in the second year following the exodus from the land of Egypt, the Lord spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting, saying. So the first line sets the scene of the book. This is happening in the wilderness of Sinai at the tent of meeting on the first of the month of the second month in the second year. So this is exactly a month earlier from this, the Mishkan went into service. Okay, so this is the second month of after the Exodus of Egypt. Okay, let's see what the Or Hachaim says. He says, I believe that if we look at the text closely, we will see that the Torah follows a thoroughly logical pattern. We have to remember the comment on Shemos Rabbah on Exodus, there is a place here beside me, where the meaning of the words beside is interpreted as emphasizing that the place is secondary to God. Okay, so what's Exodus 33:21? Let's look that up real quick. Exodus. Hold on one second. Does anybody have their Tanakh with them?
Look around 2:19. What'd you say? Exodus
33, chapter 33, verse 21. Anybody, you should bring your Tanakh or your Chumash.
Maybe 221. Look on page 221.
Chapter
220 or 221?
Chapter 33.
Chapter 32?
No, chapter.
Yeah.
I said chapter 33, verse 21. All right, I'll read it for everybody.
221 in the Tanakh.
This is in the Parsha of Kisisa, and this is when Moshe is having his pinnacle experience of God. Remember, he needs to win over forgiveness for the children of Israel for doing what sin? Unmute yourself if you have the answer. What's the sin that he has to find forgiveness for? The answer is the golden calf. Golden calf. So after the golden calf, Moshe goes on Har Sinai to win forgiveness for the Jewish people. And that, in the aftermath of winning their forgiveness, he has the closest experience anybody in history ever has with Hashem. And amongst that, Moshe says, it says, Vayomer hareini na es kivodecha. Moshe says to him, show me please your full glory. Vayomer, and he said, Ani evir kol tuvi al panecha. I'll pass all my goodness before your face. V'karati b'shem Adonai, and I'll call out in the name of God. Lifanecha, before you. V'chanosi es asher achon, v'richamti es asher arachem. You'll see that I give favor to the ones I favor, and I have mercy on those that I shall have mercy. And that's one of the names of God, right? Vayomer lo tuchal liros es panai, and God says, and God also says, but you can't see my face, ki lo yireni ha'adam b'chai, because a person cannot see my face and live. And then here's our verse. Here's our key verse. Vayomer Adonai, and God said, Hinei makom iti, there is a place with me or near me, v'nitzavta al hatzur, stand yourself on the rock. So there's a place near God. There's a place near me. That's an important line. I always picture it like Moshe kind of hid in a little space, like a little cleft of rock, and God passes by and he gets to see what the back of God. This is like very deep, and you could have a whole day talking about what is this meaning. but this idea of there's a place with me, okay? So going back to our text, to the Hachaim in Bamidbar, he's referring to that, and he says, the Shemos Rabbah says that when it means there's a place near God, it emphasizes that place in general is secondary to God. Were this not so, the Torah would have quoted God as saying, I am here in this place. In other words, the whole concept of makom, of space, right? Everyone understand? The concept of space is secondary as far as God is concerned. This is really interesting for me because it's coming up a lot. My son Zev has been asking me a lot about, like, will you see people in heaven? Do you get to travel in heaven? Do you, and like when I say, like, do you see? Well, there's no eyes. You don't have eyes. So how could you see? There's something, but this idea of spirituality and godliness versus our world of space and matter, matter is totally secondary as far as Hashem is concerned. So once we appreciate this fact, we know that anytime the Torah mentions God's appearance in a certain place, the place mentioned is of minor significance. When the Torah mentions the desert, this is really only a detail relative to God communicating with Moshe out of the Ohel Moed, which is the essential message of the verse. Meaning God is, I guess what he's saying is God is no more in the desert of Sinai than God fills the entire universe. But it's saying this is where this revelation occurred on the human side. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
Did somebody say no?
Yes, yes, Rabbi, yes.
Good, Neil. I heard somebody say no.
No, I would say yes.
Oh, right. Anyways, the Ohel Moed is a little different, meaning God has some kind of actual spatial identity in the Ohel Moed. But any other place, we say God is here, but do we really mean that, like, God is like this thing? I don't even know what this thing is. I think my wife keeps her credit cards in that. Like, is God like this thing in any way? No, absolutely not. When we say God is here, we mean something different by that, okay? And I think we all understand that. The Torah draws our attention to this by first mentioning the day and the month when this occurred, before telling us in which year it took place. Further evidence of the miraculous change a place undergoes when God honors it with his presence is provided in the Medrash, where the Medrash describes the fact that God, who is able to call into existence the whole universe and fill it with his presence, meaning God's presence fills the whole universe. Where do we say that? Kivodo male olam. Remember we said that in Davin, Kivodo male olam. Your glory fills the entire universe, right? So how could God's presence, who fills the entire universe, how could he speak to the Israelite people from between the angels, the cherubim, on top of the Aram? Not only that, but the Medrash says, and I'll have to look into this more, the Medrash says that the 600,000 Israelites were squeezed into the space of those 2 cubits. A cubit is like 1.5 feet. So basically 3 feet, all 600,000 Israelites were squeezed into those 2 cubits between the Holy Ark, where the Holy Ark was carried. I don't know what that's referring to. It may be referring to the experience of receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. But whatever it is, when it comes to God, the physical rules of nature go out the door. We normally perceive small quantities fitting into containers designed to accommodate larger quantities. You ever have that problem, like when you have a leftover and it's real small, but all you have is giant Tupperware? It works, but it's annoying. Such laws of nature may be reversed at God's will, right? So that you can fit a whole leftover feast into a tiny little Tupperware when it comes to Hashem, and as it were. Everyone following me? I hope, with everybody muted, I can't tell if anybody's agreeing with what I'm saying.
We're listening in rapture.
Okay, I'm glad everybody's is interested. So this was a condition that he made with nature at the time of creation. So everyone follow that. This is just like the Or Hachaim is teaching us something very deep and Kabbalistic about Hashem, is just to remember, we talk about Hashem in space, like Hashem is here with this, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, but just to remember that any laws that we understand about mass and space of Makom are totally not applicable when it comes to God, okay? I thought that was like a really interesting teaching. But if you thought that was interesting, he gets even more interesting for the next pasuk. So the next verse of the Torah. So the first thing that happens in the book of Bamidbar, because this is a class on knowing the Parsha, is that God commands Moshe, take a census of the people of Israel. Everybody from all the males from the age of 20 and up who could go fight in a war. But he's also told, when you count them, don't count the tribe of anyone?
Levi.
Levi, you got it. Levi's counted separately. So that's an interesting idea. What's fascinating is that the count turns out to be the same as the count that was taken a couple months before. So how could it be that a couple months pass and the count is the same? So let's go into this really deep teaching by the Or Hachaim on the count. Yeah. It's count the heads of the community of Israel. We need to know why the Israelites had to be numbered at this time. Rashi quotes a medrash that according to which God ordered the census as soon as he was ready to again allow his presence to dwell among the Israelites after the sin of the golden calf.
Okay.
Meaning, the question is, why does God count us there? You know, he counted us. We've already been counted at Mount Sinai. So why are we counted again at Mount Sinai? We were counted directly after the sin of the golden calf. Does everybody remember that? After the sin of the golden calf, that's Kisisa. Kisisa, the Parsha Kisisa, is when you count the children of Israel. That's what it means. So basically, this count seems pretty superfluous. But Rashi gives an answer, and Rashi says, because it was an indication that God's willing to start again. And I think it's a beautiful Rashi. It's like kind of like when you count something, like assess it. You assess a relationship, you're ready to start again. After a big fight, okay, then everybody pulls back, and then you look at your relationship and you're ready to move forward. Everyone following that idea of Rashi?
Yes.
Somebody give me a
yes.
Somebody give me a
yes.
Okay. This is that's one of the problems of teaching on Zoom is like, if I'm in class, I see people nodding their heads or sleeping. So I know how things are going.
You can see us.
I guess I could, but I'm too busy trying to toggle. Oh, I could see all of you guys.
Gallery view.
Look at these good-looking people. Woo-hoo!
Gallery view on the right, upside, right side.
Oh, love you guys. Thank you for making my evening so special for learning Torah with me. Okay, so that's Rashi. But guess what the Or Hachaim says? And this is interesting. The Or Hachaim comes 300 years ago. He's not from the time period of Rashi. Who is he to argue with Rashi? But guess what he says? This is insufficient to answer our question. He doesn't like Rashi. He says Rashi's cute, but insufficient. If the census had only been an indication of God's reconciliation with his people, he should have ordered it to take place before the month of Nisan when the tabernacle was inaugurated, not a month later. Meaning, what was the real show that God had forgiven the people of Israel? What was the real moment where we know, oh, thank God he forgave us? When was that moment?
When he brought us into Israel.
No, before then.
Before that?
Yeah, when do we know? When do
October.
we know you're forgiven for the golden
Ten
calf?
Commandments.
What?
Ten Commandments.
He just said it over here. No, the 10 Commandments came before the golden calf. He just said, so what happened? After the golden calf, Moshe has to win forgiveness. He wins forgiveness. He comes down. Everybody's punished, whoever sinned with the golden calf. But God's kind of outside the picture. God is not hanging out. So when does God come back into the picture? It happens on the 1st of Nisan, meaning exactly a year from the Exodus. What happens on the 1st of Nisan? They erect the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and the fire of glory, the fire of God comes down from the heavens and consumes their offerings. And everybody says, oh, thank God, God is here. God is with us again. Okay? Following?
Yeah.
So if the count was about reconciliation, when should the count have taken place? Right around the time of the erection of the tabernacle, either before the 1st of Nisan or after the 1st of Nisan, right when the tabernacle was inaugurated, not a month later. Okay, so everyone see why the Hachaim has a problem with Rashi's answer. Somebody give me an amen.
Yes.
Okay.
So is he going to say that we're getting ready to go into Eretz Yisrael, so we have to get ready with the army?
But the question is, why right now? Why now? So let's hear what he says. I think this is so fascinating, his answer. This is one of my favorite things in the Or HaChaim I've learned. Before investigating the reason for this delay in the census, we have to remember that the previous census, which was recorded in Parshas Pekudei, gave the number of the male Israelites over the age of 20 as 603,550, okay? You hear that? 603,550. This was 6 months after the sin of the golden calf, when the half shekel contributed by each male Israelite over the age of 20 represented his soul's ransom. This number exceeded the number of male Israelites above the age of 20 who left Egypt by about 3,550. Remember, we said about 600,000 male Israelites left Egypt, and by the time it was the count after the golden calf, there were 600,000, 3,550. So that's 3,550 more, and that makes sense. People got older. People got over the age of 20. Although, here's the interesting, in the interval during the episode of the golden calf, many Israelites had died or had been executed by the Levites because they had participated in the worship of the golden calf. If it had taken only 6 months to replenish their number, as reported in Parshas Pekudei, how do we account for the fact that between then and now, the number had not increased by even 1? So the count that we're going to do now, guess what the number is that they're going to come up with in the count that we're going to do now?
603,550.
You got it. Meaning the count did not go up. So how could it be that in the 6 months from the golden calf to Pekudei, it goes up by 3,550, and that's despite the fact that a lot of people died in the golden calf. But then from then until now, which is about 6 months, it's the exact same. How do we explain that?
Could it be that many of the people who died were below the age of 20, and were not counted in the first census?
That's an interesting answer. It's a possible answer.
It's
Okay, how do we account for the fact that between then and now, the number had not increased by even 1? Surely a number of Israelites had reached the age of 20 in the interval between the census, which is mentioned in Pekudei, right? That's the end of book of Exodus. and that which is reported here in the book of Bamidbar. It's unlikely that any of these people died during a period. It is unlikely that any of the people died during a period. They were all busy with performing the commandment to bring their contributions to the tabernacle. Meaning, between the Exodus and the count in Pekude, there was all kinds of bad stuff that happened. In between Pekude and now, it's been pretty good. They built they built a Mishkan. They've been doing good. They stopped complaining so much. So how could their number not go up now if it went up then? Okay. Somebody say, good question.
Good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our question is reinforced when we consider a comment in the Psikta Zutra, according to which the words Vayu kol hapekudim in Numbers, right, in our Parsha, is proof, right? So the Medrash teaches that, or it's the Kabbalah, I believe, teaches that there's proof that as long as the Israelites were occupied with the work pertaining to the tabernacle, not a single one of them died. Okay, so there's this comment which seems pretty far-fetched, but yet they based on the words "you," and it was the entire. I guess, and it was meaning none of them died. I don't know how you get it from that, but bottom line is there's a medrash that says none of them died during this period. So then how is the count the exact same? It just increases the question. If nobody died between Pekude and now, and there's people that are becoming 20 years old, there had to be 20-year-old birthday parties. So then how did you end up with the same number then and now?
Well, there's
Think of
also
them as a
upper
half.
cap, right? Because it's between 20 and 60. So is it that the same amount of people are coming or reaching 20 and then exiting over 60 at the same time?
That's another good thought, but that's not where we're going to go. But it's another good thought. We'll put in the box of good thoughts for the day. When we look at the numbers presented here, we are bound to conclude that more of the people died after the people commenced with the work of the tabernacle than during the episode of the golden calf. Meaning, if you use logic, you'd say that, like, how could it be that the population didn't grow at all, and that and that it's the exact same count. However, according to our understanding of Shekalim, the members of the tribe of Levi were included in the count of the people who had contributed at a half shekel per person. Right? Meaning in the count, in the original count, the Leviim were included. We may conclude that in our verse, the Levites were most certainly not included in the census, seeing that the Torah commands that they should be counted separately. The question is then resolved quite easily. In fact, the reason the Torah added the apparent redundant comment that the Levites were not to be included in the sum of the census given here was precisely in order to make this point. It emerges that the natural increase of the Israelites between the time of the work on the tabernacle began, which was in Parshas Pekude, and the second month of the second year of their wanderings, which is our Parsha, was equivalent to the entire number of who? The Levites.
Yes.
Meaning the count of 603,550 included Levites. The count now is 603,550, but not including the Levites. And that's why God told them to wait till right now. If the Torah had concluded the paragraph ending with verse 47 with the words, as God had commanded them, as it did with the end of the paragraph dealing with the flags in 233, I would have concluded that the mention of the Levites not being included in the count was only to show that the Israelites complied with God's instructions not to lump them together with the other tribes. But the fact that the Torah did not add these proves that God wanted to alert us not to be surprised at the fact that the number of people counted was so small, relatively speaking, and at first glance did not appear to reflect a natural increase of the population of the Jewish people. The meaning of the words in Pesikta Zutra is abundantly clear, meaning nobody died. The author wants to justify the totally disproportionate natural increase in the number of male Israelites during the above 20 during such a short period of the time from Yom Kippur of the first year and the beginning of Iyar, the month of Iyar, by reminding us, right? So that's basically 7 months. In 7 months, we grew so much that we replaced the whole tribe of Levi. Everyone following?
Yep.
Are you guys, do you understand this? It's kind of complicated, but basically the reason that the first count, the whole reason to do this count right now, according to the Hachaim, is because they finally reached the number that they had reached. Like they've reached the full number that they had reached back at the other count, meaning they've replaced the tribe of Levi amongst just the Jewish people. It's reminding us that no Israelite died during that period when they were busy assembling materials for the tabernacle and constructing it. God waited with this census until this date so as to ensure that the total number being counted would not be smaller than the number mentioned in Parshas Pekudei. In Deuteronomy, which describes the fact that the Israelites are alive as of that date, due to their having cleaved to Hashem, right? Remember that verse, V'atem hadbekim b'Adonai Elohechem chayim kulchem hayom. You who cleave on to Hashem, your God, you are alive today. It provides the basis for the statement by the author of the Pesikta Zutra that no one died during the period under discussion. So basically, God specifically wanted them. He disagrees with Rashi. Rashi says, meaning, why are we starting the book of Bamidbar with a count of the Jewish people? We just counted them 7 years ago. That's wasted tax money. Or seven months ago. I was thinking about the census, right? Like people, there's a lot of tax money being wasted. Why do we have to do it again? And so Rashi says it's because God wants to show how much he loves us and forgives us. But according to the Hachaim, and he picks up this idea from I believe it's the Kabbalah. If it's not the Kabbalah, it's a Medrash. He picks up on this idea that no one died during this time. The population growth was tremendous, so much so that in the first count, they included the tribe of Levi. In the second count, they excluded the tribe of Levi, but it was still the same count. Okay? Everyone follow?
Yes.
I just thought it was a really interesting thing. Like, first of all, explain the question of why the count now, and second of all, explaining this big problem that we face, that like, why is the count the exact same number as it was 7 months ago? It's like, what the heck, you know? And the answer is, it's specifically God wanted them to count when the number was the exact same, not having anything to do with the start of the Mishkan but just to tell them that you have come a long way during these 7 months. You were there, but now you are complete, and not one of you has even died during these 7 months. So there's something very special about that answer. Okay?
So then I have an additional question, Rebbe.
Yes.
In terms of the age, so it's between 20 and 60, right?
Yes.
So and the idea that 20 is, so 13 is the bar mitzvah age. Why would it be 7 additional years to 20 in order to be responsible enough in order to be included within the census count?
A good question. Very, very good question. The way that it puts it is Kol Yotzei Tzava, anybody who went out to war. I find it very fascinating that the warriors were older. Like today, these days in America, you could be 18 and go to war. But in ancient Israel, you had to be 20. And it was, some say the Kabbalah, there's a Kabbalistic idea that that's the age you go to war with your Yetzer Hara, meaning all the sins that you do before you're 20 are not really like, you really didn't mean to do it. There's like kind of a forgiveness at 20. But once you're 20, then you're really like responsible. Like, I guess there's between 13, obviously up till 13, you have no responsibility. But then between 13 and 20, it's sort of still a practice time. Don't tell the teens that I said that.
So then at 20, then you're fully responsible in Shemayim.
Right. 20 is like fully responsible to Shemayim.
Okay.
So they have
Isn't it also like marriage?
What?
Isn't it also like marriage? Doesn't marriage have something to do with that time period? Marriage? Just marriage?
Maybe. I think the Pirkei Avos says 18 for marriage, I believe. But I'll have to look that up. But there's something about that. I mean, there's definitely an idea relating marriage to war. Meaning they say if you've gotten married but you haven't been able to, consummate the marriage and have time together, then you don't have to go to war. It's one of the rules.
I think there's an idea of keeping each family line, not wiping out any family line. Give somebody 2 years or several years to have children. Particularly, forgive me, ladies, to have sons, to carry on your name before you went to war.
Yeah, that's an interesting, a very important point. Another thing that they say, though, is that there's 3 laws that are in that category. If you built a home but you didn't get to live in it, then you are exempt. If you married a wife but you didn't yet get to like be with her, then you're exempt. And if you, the third one is if you planted a vineyard and didn't get to harvest and drink from the vineyard, you're exempt. And one of the famous midrash, like really, why all these things? It gives people, cowards, an ability to get out without saving face. Meaning, it shows how important it is not to embarrass someone. If they just stood and said, "All the cowards, you guys can go home," that would not be right. So that would not be right. So they give you these outs for people to say, "Oh yeah, I did plant a vineyard and I haven't drinking the wine yet. So I'll see you on the next." But the truth is, you don't want a coward going to war. That could harm the results. Anyways, the next Orach Chaim is on chapter 2, verse 33. It says, just as God commanded, Moshe did not count the Levites amongst them, right? God had said, do not count the Levites. And it says, just as God commanded, Moshe did it. So why does it have to tell us that? I mean, God said not to do it, so Moshe's not going to do it. But it says the Levites were upset. The Levites considered it a spiritual elevation to be counted amongst the people. And they wanted to be counted. But Moshe and the Levites did what Hashem had asked, right? Sometimes even when you want to do something spiritual, but God says, no, this is how I want it done. And you do what God does, that's what's spiritual. It's a very interesting idea concerning what we have to tonight. The board is meeting. We're going to talk about whether we're opening up the shul. for minions. And there's a lot of information around that. I'm not going to share all the information about how it would work. But, you know, if a lot of people want to have a minion, but if Hashem says you're supposed to be safe, then Hashem, and you're not going to be safe having a minion, if that's the case, then Hashem doesn't want the minion. Meaning what Hashem wants is specifically not to have a minion. If we conclude that it's not safe to have a minion. Everyone following? So sometimes somebody might say, but I want to have a minion. I want to daven to Hashem. But if the conclusion is, but Hashem doesn't want you to daven because it's not safe, then what are you supposed to do?
Don't daven.
Then don't daven, because it's not about what you want to do. It's about what Hashem wants to do. It's the famous story. I love this story. I can't tell the whole story because I'm running out of time, but it's the story of Reb Zusha and his brother, the holy the Noam Elimelech, were thrown into a prison by the Tsarist Russians, and they put like filth, they put poop in a bucket in their jail cell, and the halacha is you can't daven when there's poop in the jail cell. See, here I am going and telling the whole story. Anyways, so Rav Zusha was crying, I can't daven Mariv. And he was so sad, he was broken. And his brother of the Noam Elimelech says to him, wait a second, who's the one who taught us that we're not allowed to, who told us the halacha, you're not allowed to daven when there's poop, when there's a bad smell? And he said, it was Hashem. So he said, so you're serving Hashem by not davening. And Rav Zusha was so happy. He started singing and dancing, and he was just so happy. And he said, we're not davening. There's poop, Baruch Hashem. He was so happy. And the guards came running and they said, you dirty Jews, why are you so happy? And Rav Zusha says, because there's poop. And the guards took the bucket away, and then they davened mincha.
That's cute.
Anyways, in reward, the Medrash says that in reward for the fact that the Levium, did not include in the count, even though they wanted to, it was at that time that the angels were described as descending together with God's Shekhinah on Mount Sinai, meaning the people had a vision of angels, to the camp of the angels on Mount Sinai, and they inspired the Israelites to ask for flags, similar to what they observed amongst the angels. And that's why later in this Parsha and in the next Parsha, we talk about the flags, the Degel Machaneh Ephraim, right? The flags of Israel were inspired by the angels in this vision that they had seen. Okay, everyone?
Amen. Ashikakrav.
Oh, we're not done yet.
Oh, okay, continue. We got plenty of time.
We have
Good.
time?
You guys are
Can we ask a
amazing.
question?
Are amazing.
Yes, ask a question.
You have time for a question, Rabbi?
I do have time for a question.
Debbie has a
You
question.
ask,
Okay, Debbie had the question. How does the, I should know this, but how does the
Demon.
Pidyon Haben, the redemption, does this somehow tie in with the golden calf and all that?
Absolutely.
Had to pay 5
Stop
shekels.
talking.
Absolutely. This is the idea of Pidyon Haben is in this Parsha, but I can't go into it. But yes, the Levites get exchanged for firstborns because the firstborns lost their right to serve because they participated in the sin of the golden calf, whereas the Levites did not. So the next thing is that they count the Levites, and the Levites' number was 22,000. Okay, all the count of all the Levites, not just the ones for war, but a younger number, anybody who was fit to serve, right, was 22,000. Okay, everyone following me? Hello?
Yes. 22.
Yeah.
Okay. Ramban wonders, says, what's the deal with the small number of Levites? Seeing that we're dealing with the tribe who proved loyal to God during the episode of the golden calf, and they had not sustained losses in their number at the time, meaning a lot of the Jews died because of the golden calf, but not the Levites. Moreover, they were beloved of God already while in Egypt. How is it that their number was so small? They only had 22,000. Although they were counted from the age of 1 month, as opposed to the other tribes who were counted only from the age of 20 and over, the number of Levites was smaller than the numerically least populous tribe, meaning the least populous tribe was the Levites, and they were included even from 1 month and up. So Nachmanides, Ramban provides two possible answers. One is that seeing the phenomenal increase in the population of Jews in Egypt was due to the cruel oppression of the Israelites by the Egyptians, right? Remember, it says the more they oppressed them, the more they were fruitful and multiplied. Does everyone remember that?
Right.
So,
Yes.
so the reason that the Jews were blessed with incredible population growth was because of the oppression. This blessing did not extend to the Levites, who did not have to perform slave labor in Egypt. And two, another answer given by Nachmanides, Jacob's anger at his son Levi. Remember, Levi killed the city of
Shem.
Shechem with his brother Shimon. And so Nachmanides says, I believe that the second reason that they have a small population is because of the curse by Jacob. But the Hachaim disagrees. Right? Today he's disagreed with Rashi, and now he disagrees with
Rambam.
With Ramban, with Nachmanides.
Ramban.
He says, I think this reason, the second reason quoted by Nachmanides, is very difficult to accept. We don't find any source for assuming that the anger of a father caused lack of fertility in his sons. And besides, when you examine the book of Chronicles, you'll find that the Levites between the ages of 30 and 50, who were numbered at that time near the end of King David's life, comprised 38,000. So when we compare this number with the number given in Parshas Naso, some 8,500, we certainly do not notice any lack of fertility on the part of that tribe. This means that during the approximately 480 years between our count and the count in King David's time, that's interesting to know, right? There's 480 years between this time in the Torah and King David coming around. The Levites increased fourfold. If you compare the numbers given for the other tribes in Israel, when they're counted in Chronicles, you'll see that they only doubled in number. I mean, the Jews have never been good at making a lot of us. Have you noticed that? I mean, we've been around since before the Chinese, and there's like 1 billion of them, and there's still only like 16 million of us. So in 480 years, they doubled. That's no good. That's no good. But anyways, that's always been our problem. Because I think we lose a lot of people to anti-Semitism, and we lose a lot of people to other religions, because Judaism's not an easy faith to follow. Anyways, in view of this, it's difficult to see how Jacob's anger at his son Levi impeded the development of his descendants. Okay, so he rejects the second answer of Nachmanides that had to do with the curse of Jacob. But he does accept the first one that has to do with the fact that the Levites were not oppressed in Egypt. And he's going to go into that. I think it's very interesting what he says. He says, I believe that the simplest explanation for the relatively small number of Levites is the fact that they copied the example of their leader Amram. Who was Amram? Anybody? Who was Amram? Amram is the father of Moshe. Okay, so what did the father of Moshe do when they decreed that all the firstborns are going to be thrown in the river? Amram divorced his wife when the decree of the male babies was published. The Levites, precisely because they were not subject to hard physical labor and all kinds of abuse, remained very sensitive, so that they were not prepared. They were not prepared to sire children, only to have them drowned at birth. They therefore remained largely celibate after having produced a minimum number of children. Everyone followed that meaning. The Levites were on the outside seeing this miserable thing happening, and they were used to having things go pretty well for them. And so they said, we're not going to bring kids into this world. Their fellow Israelites, who were subjected daily to all kinds of cruel experiences, had lost some of their sensitivity. So that the prospect of that some of their children facing death at birth, it didn't really concern them quite as much as it did the Levites. As a result, they practiced the commandment of being fruitful without giving restraint, and God rewarded them with large families. Their wives did not mind giving births in the fields, something that civilized people like the tribe of Levi wouldn't do. The Torah did not spell all this out in detail. It mentions what Amram had done only because he reversed himself when his daughter, who's Amram's daughter? Miriam. When his daughter Miriam accused him of being worse than Paro. Miriam said to her father, Paro wants to kill the male children, but by not having children, you're killing the male and the female children. And then the fact that Amram remarried his wife does not mean that the other Levites followed his example. As a result, they had a far smaller base from which to increase their numbers. So that's the Or Hachaim's answer as to why the tribe of Levi was so small. Interesting?
Yes.
Yes. All right, my friends.
Yes.
That's Or Hachaim on the Parsha this week. I am so blessed that you're with us. Jackie, I love you. Neil, I love you. Joan, I love you.
Rav.
Sheila, I love you. Nancy, I love you. Paul, I love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Jeff
Wonderful.
and Larry and Ira, they're from the board, so they're here for the next meeting, but they did catch some Torah, so I love you guys as well.
Yes, Shakir. Thank you, Rabbi.
Oh, love you. And everyone who's here, Sally, Holy Sally.
Holy Sally.
And Sarah Lee was here, so thank you, guys. I love you very much, and if I missed anyone, I'm sorry.
Have a good evening, Rav. Take care.
Thank you, beautiful.
Thank you.
Do you want us to sign back in, or should we stay?
We're going to sign back in.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll sign.